We open the bloodline files, and this case takes us deep into the forests of Quezon Province, where a mountain has earned a reputation darker than any shadow it casts. This is Mount Cristobal, a peak often called the Devil's Mountain, rising beside Mount Banahaw, which is considered sacred and holy. Cristobal is believed to be cursed. For generations, locals have whispered warnings: do not climb it, do not disrespect it, and most of all, do not underestimate it. They say spirits roam its slopes, that demons watch from the tree line, and that strange creatures hunt the careless. Those who dare to climb return with terrifying stories if they return at all. They describe vanishing trails, voices calling their names, and the chilling sense of being watched by something not human. From disappearances to ghostly apparitions, Cristobal has collected a long list of legends. In this file, we will unravel those accounts and step into the shadow of the Devil's Mountain. Unlike Banahaw, which draws pilgrims seeking healing waters and holy visions, Cristobal is feared even by the locals living at its base. The mountain has long been described as its brother's cursed twin, a place where negative energy gathers. Old tales describe it as the home of Tikbalang Tol, horse-headed beings that lead travelers, astray, or encantos that despise human intrusion. Climbers who laugh off the warnings often find themselves trapped in endless loops, walking for hours only to arrive back at the same spot. Compasses spin uselessly, the air grows heavier, and some hikers claim time itself bends. In the 1970s, several groups reported losing entire days on the mountain, remembering nothing but the sound of whispers guiding them in circles. One survivor said he saw his companion walking ahead, only to find that same friend standing right beside him. These stories strengthened Cristobal's cursed reputation, branding it not just dangerous but otherworldly. To locals, it is not a mountain to conquer, but one to fear. Many of the most chilling accounts center on voices that call hikers by name. Survivors describe hearing the familiar tone of a loved one, sometimes a parent, a sibling, or even a partner beckoning them deeper into the forest. One climber admitted he heard his mother's voice calling for help, though she was safe at home in Manila. When he followed, he became separated from his group for nearly 6 hours, later found trembling and refusing to speak of what he had seen. Another climber warned never to respond when the mountain calls. To answer is to surrender, and many who have obeyed were never seen again. Some locals insist these are not spirits of the dead, but deceivers, entities that lure the living into traps. It is said that answering the call ties your soul to the mountain, and no search party can find you once you are taken. The fear of hearing one's own name, echo in the mist, has haunted Cristobal's trails for decades. Shadows are another recurring presence in Cristobal's legends. Climbers often report seeing figures darting between trees, always at the edge of their vision. When approached, these shadows vanish into the foliage, leaving only silence. Some describe tall, human-like forms with glowing eyes, watching from a distance, never stepping closer but always present. One mountaineer wrote in his journal about a figure that followed their group for hours, appearing on every bend in the trail. When they rushed toward it, the shadow simply dissolved into the air. Many believe these are Tikbalang guarding the mountain, forcing travelers to become lost unless they show respect, often by turning their shirts inside out or whispering prayers. Yet Cristobal's shadows feel far darker. Survivors claim the figures seemed predatory, as if stalking rather than protecting. In one terrifying incident, a hiker swore he was chased by something invisible, hearing heavy footsteps behind him though nothing was there. The shadow of Cristobal is said to cling long after you descend. Disappearances remain the most terrifying truth about Mount Cristobal. Unlike other hiking accidents, where search and rescue eventually find the missing, Cristobal has a history of climbers who vanish completely. One infamous case involved a group of students in the late 1980s. They set out on a weekend climb, but only half returned. The survivors were incoherent, insisting they're missing friends. had simply walked into the trees and never returned. Despite weeks of searching, no trace was ever found, not even footprints. Families waited for news that never came, and locals whispered the mountain had claimed them. Another account tells of a foreign climber who set camp alone near the summit. The next day, rescuers found his tent undisturbed, his belongings intact but no sign of him. It was as if he had stepped out into the night and vanished into thin air. These unsolved disappearances turned Cristobal's reputation from myth into fear, reminding all who hear its stories that some victims are never recovered. When night falls, Cristobal transforms into something far more sinister. Survivors describe the eerie silence that swallows the forest after dusk. Crickets stop chirping, the wind grows still, and not even birds stir. One group awoke in their tents to see dark silhouettes standing just beyond the firelight, tall, unmoving and watching. They stayed frozen until dawn, too terrified to breathe. Another climber recounted waking to his tent violently shaking, as if something large was clawing at the fabric. When he rushed outside, there was nothing, only the sound of footsteps retreating into the forest. Perhaps the most chilling account tells of a campfire that extinguished without cause. Immediately after, multiple hikers heard the sound of dozens of footsteps circling them in the dark, though no one could be seen. They huddled together, paralyzed, until morning finally brought light. For those who climb Cristobal, the night is not a time to rest, it is a time to survive. Locals often say Cristobal punishes those who disrespect it. Stories circulate of climbers mocking the legends, only to suffer accidents. One man carved his initials into a large boulder, proudly dismissing the superstitions. Hours later, he slipped and broke his leg, claiming invisible hands had pushed him. Another group of mountaineers laughed at the old rituals. But as they neared the summit, a sudden storm struck. Winds howled, trees toppled, and they were forced to retreat in terror. Elders in the nearby villages insist the mountain has guardians, whether they be Tikbalang, Encantos, or darker entities that protect its heart. To enter without permission is to invite misfortune. Hikers who honor the spirits with quiet prayers or ask for safe passage often report easier journeys, though the sense of being watched never leaves. Cristobal, they believe, is not a mountain to conquer, but a realm to respect. Those who mock it pay the price, sometimes with injuries, and sometimes with their very lives. Survivors' testimonies give chilling consistency to Cristobal's legends. One man spoke of wandering in thick fog, only to hear footsteps behind him that matched his every move. Another swore he was guided by a woman in white, beckoning him along the trail, until she vanished before his eyes. Some climbers feel sudden dizziness, nausea, or overwhelming dread that forces them to abandon their climb. Others describe objects being moved, gear scattered, or strange markings etched into the soil near their tents. A few even claim to have seen portals in the forest, shimmering spaces where the air bends like glass. Though impossible to prove, these stories fuel the belief that Cristobal is not entirely bound to our world. Hikers often say that even after descending, the mountain lingers in their dreams. Nightmares of endless trails, of whispers calling their names, or of faceless shadows standing at the foot of their bed, follow them long after the climb is over. Skeptics argue these tales are nothing more than exaggerations, born from fear, exhaustion, or natural illusions. They point out that dense fog, magnetic rocks, and disorientation can explain many experiences. Yet even with science, one thing remains undeniable. Cristobal's reputation endures. Modern technology has not erased the fear. GPS devices often malfunction, compasses still fail, and despite organized climbs, people still vanish. The villagers who live near the base remain cautious, offering the same warnings their ancestors gave generations ago. For them, Cristobal is not merely nature, it is a force, alive in ways that defy explanation. Whether supernatural or psychological, the Devil's Mountain thrives on its ability to unsettle, to confuse and to remind humans of their fragility. And so, despite countless scientific attempts to rationalize its mysteries, the mountain continues to be feared. Those who climb for thrill, pride, or proof often return humbled or sometimes do not return at all. Mount Cristobal's legend remains one of the Philippines' most enduring mysteries. It is more than rock, forest, and trail. It is a place where faith and fear collide. Where Banahaw inspires devotion, Cristobal inspires dread. Its stories are not just folklore, they are warnings, carried across generations by those who lived near its slopes and those who barely survived its climb. In every account, whether of voices, shadows, or vanishings, one truth echoes. Cristobal does not welcome intruders. It toys with them, confuses them, and sometimes keeps them forever. Even today, climbers whisper prayers before setting foot on its trails, hoping for safe passage. And yet the mountain stands silent, watching, waiting, perhaps hungering for the next soul bold enough to test its curse. This case remains unresolved, for in the heart of Quezon, the Devil's Mountain still rises, shrouded in mist, cloaked in legend. The Bloodline Files closes this account, but Cristobal's darkness is far from closed.